After 6 long months in space, Captain Elias Ward was finally coming home. His small mining ship had spent weeks drifting among Jupiter's moons, hauling frozen or through endless darkness. Now, the black of space gave way to the bright blue of Earth the moment his shuttle broke through the clouds. He could almost smell pine trees again. Elias landed the shuttle near a frozen lake deep in the Colorado mountains. His cabin stood nearby, built from dark logs and heavy stone. The place had been empty since he left, but it always waited for him, quiet, cold, patient. He carried only one small duffel bag. The snow crunched beneath his boots as he climbed the porch steps. The lock was stiff from the cold. He turned the key slowly, pushed the door open, and froze. Warmth, the air inside wasn't icy like it should have been. A low, steady crackle came from the fireplace. Orange light flickered over the walls. Someone had lit a fire. Elias stepped inside carefully. His hand brushed the holster at his side, where an old service pistol rested. His eyes adjusted to the dim light, scanning the cabin, the couch, the shelves, the tools by the door, all the same. Except one thing. A shape stood near the fire. She was tall, slim, and not human. Her skin was pale silver, smooth like moonlight on metal. Her hair fell in dark streaks over her shoulders, catching the warm glow. When she turned, her eyes reflected the flames, bright, deep, filled with something strange. Surprise. For a long second, neither of them moved. The wind outside pressed against the windows, making the cabin groan softly. "I thought this place was abandoned," she said at last. Her voice was calm, but carried a quiet tremor, as if she had rehearsed human words but hadn't used them in years. Elias's grip tightened on his duffel. "You thought wrong?" They stared at each other. The air felt heavier than gravity. Elias had seen alien faces before on trade stations, through glass, across cold corridors, but never like this. Never standing in his home, the silver-skinned stranger took a step back from the fire, her long cloak brushing the floor. She raised her hand slowly to show she wasn't armed. "I mean no harm," she said softly. Elias set down his bag, but didn't take his eyes off her. "Then start explaining." She hesitated, glancing toward the flames. "I was looking for shelter. In my cabin. There was no other warmth for miles." Her words were quiet, but there was something proud in the way she said them. As if asking for mercy cost her more than she wanted to admit, Elias rubbed a hand over his beard. The last storm he'd seen from orbit had covered this part of the mountains in 2 meters of snow. Anyone or anything wandering out there now would freeze within minutes. He nodded toward the fire. "All right. You found it. But I need to know who you are before I decide what happens next." The alien looked uncertain, like she wasn't used to being questioned. Finally, she said, "My name is Sareth." Elias frowned slightly. "Sareth what?" She paused. "Sareth of Valor." He blinked. The name rang faint bells in his memory. He'd heard it somewhere. Valor Empire, old reports from the Interplanetary Council. A powerful alien race known for their control over distant colonies, strict order, and wars fought for honor more than reason. "You're Valeri?" he said slowly. Sareth nodded once. "I was—" The flames popped, sending a few sparks up the chimney. Elias took a careful step closer. "And now?" Her eyes met his. "Now I'm nothing." He studied her for a long moment. The silver sheen of her skin wasn't uniform. Near her left shoulder, the color dimmed to gray, like bruised metal. A burn mark, cold, but deep. She noticed him looking and pulled her cloak tighter. Elias motioned toward the old chair across from the fireplace. "Sit down before you fall down." She hesitated, then obeyed. The way she moved, graceful but tired, told him she wasn't lying about being on the run from something. He poured water into a kettle, set it near the fire, and sat across from her. For a while, the only sound was the wood crackling. Finally, Elias broke the silence. "You said you were looking for shelter. Why Earth?" Sareth stared into the flames. "Because it is the one world my people fear." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Fear?" She nodded slowly. "They call it the Death World. A place where even the ground fights to live. They think humans thrive here only because they are too stubborn to die. He gave a short, dry laugh. They're not wrong. That made her smile faintly, almost against her will. I see that now. He watched her expression change softer, now less guarded. For the first time, Elias noticed something human in her face. Not beauty like people sang about, but a quiet weariness he knew too well. He leaned back. All right, Sereth of Valor, you can stay until the storm clears. But I don't run a hotel for fugitives. If someone's chasing you, I need to know before they come knocking. Her jaw tightened. If they come, you will know. The sky will burn first. Elias frowned. That's not comforting. Sarath looked up at him, and for a heartbeat, he saw something raw in her eyes' fear, mixed with pride. I did not expect comfort. I expected exile. The kettle whistled softly. He poured 2 cups of tea-strong, bitter earth. Tion slid one toward her. She accepted it awkwardly, unsure how to hold the cup. Steam rose between them, blurring their faces for a moment. Outside, the snow kept falling. Hours passed. Elias dozed lightly in the chair, still half ready to reach for his pistol. When he opened his eyes again, dawn was pressing through the window. Sarath was still awake, staring into the fire as if afraid it would vanish if she looked away. Didn't sleep? He asked. She shook her head. Your world is loud, even in silence. He gave a tired chuckle. That's Earth for you. Everything here is trying to live or kill something. Her eyes softened. That's what makes it alive. He studied her again. The silver glow of her skin seemed dimmer in the morning light, revealing faint scars across her arms lines like lightning. Old wounds from energy blasts or something worse. What happened to you? He asked quietly. She didn't answer right away. My throne became a weapon, she said finally, and I refused to fire it. Elias understood then. She wasn't just some traveler or soldier. She had commanded worlds. She'd fled her own empire. So, Queen Sarath, he said, testing the words. You're hiding in my cabin because you refused to start a war? Her gaze met his sharply. Do not call me queen. Not anymore? All right, he said evenly. Just Sereth, then. For the first time, she looked unsure of herself. And you. You are a warrior without a war? He smiled faintly. Something like that. They sat in silence again, the fire low but steady. Outside, the storm had softened. The world was quiet, except for the slow drip of melting snow from the roof. Elias stood and stretched. You should rest. There's a bed in the next room. Sereth looked surprised. You trust me? Not yet, he said. But I don't throw out anyone freezing to death in my living room. She hesitated, then rose and followed him. As she passed, he noticed she moved with the calm grace of someone trained for command. Each step carried the weight of loss. At the door to the small bedroom, she paused. Elias Ward, she said softly. When I first heard of your kind, I was told humans were chaos given shape. Now, I think, perhaps chaos keeps the universe alive.
Oh.
We do our best. She went inside and closed the door quietly. Elias returned to the main room and sat back by the fire. The tea had gone cold, but he didn't care. He stared into the flames, thinking, an alien queen hiding in his cabin wasn't exactly what he'd planned for his first night home. He replayed her words, the sky will burn first. Something about her tone had sounded like prophecy, not threat. He pulled a blanket over himself and leaned back, letting the warmth sink in. The wind outside had faded, but deep in the distance, he thought he heard a low hum. Probably the wind over the ridges, he told himself. Probably before sleep took him. He looked once more at the closed bedroom door. The universe was full of strange wonders and darker secrets, but none as unexpected as finding one of its lost. Queen sitting in front of his fireplace, astonished by humanity. Tomorrow, he would ask more questions. Tomorrow, he would decide what to do. For now, he let the fire burn and whispered half to himself, half to the cold mountain air. Welcome home, Elias. You've got company. Morning light spread slowly across the valley. Snow shimmered like crushed glass on the hills as smoke rose from the cabin's chimney. Elias Ward stepped outside, breathing in the cold air. It bit his lungs, but felt clean better than the recycled oxygen of space. For the first time in months, he was back under an open sky. Behind him, inside the cabin, the alien woman was awake. He heard her movements quiet, graceful. When he turned, she was standing by the window, looking out with wide, curious eyes. The early sunlight reflected off her silver skin, soft and warm. "You've never seen snow before, have you?" he asked. Saroth turned toward him. "Not falling from the sky? On my world, it's born of storms beneath the oceans. White salt, not frozen water." Elias smiled slightly. "You'll like this kind better. It doesn't sting the eyes when the wind blows." She tilted her head. "You speak of it as if it were alive," shrugged. "Out here, everything feels alive. The snow, the wind, even the silence." For a few moments, they just looked at the world together. It was strange as Lias felt no fear now. Maybe it was because she didn't move like a predator. She moved like someone who had lost everything and was trying to remember what peace looked like. "Finally," he asked. "You said you fled your people. Why?" Saroth's lips parted, but no words came at first. She turned away, walked toward the fire, and sat down slowly. The light from the flames brushed across her face, painting her in shades of orange and gold. "I was born to command," she said quietly. "My bloodline built the Valor Empire. For centuries we ruled the stars not by mercy, but by fear." Elias poured himself a cup of coffee and listened. "When I became queen," she continued, "I wanted to end the endless wars. My council called it weakness. They said peace was a disease only humans carried. But when our fleets reached your system, I saw something my generals did not." She looked up at him. "I saw a world that refused to kneel." Elias's brow furrowed. "You were part of that?" "The Valeri Recon War." Sareth nodded slowly. "I was meant to lead the invasion. Instead, I ended it." Elias leaned back in his chair, silent for a moment. He remembered that Warth's defense fleets, standing against a force far beyond their size. The Valeri ships had vanished suddenly, as if retreating for reasons no one understood. "That was you?" he said finally. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Yes. I ordered the retreat. I told my fleet that humanity was not an enemy, that Earth's fire would consume anyone who tried to take it." Elias couldn't hide his surprise. "That decision must have cost you a throne." She looked into the fire again. "It cost me more than that. My own people called me traitor. My guard turned against me. I escaped in a stolen ship, alone." The cabin fell quiet. Outside, the wind brushed snow from the pines, whispering like ghosts through the trees. Elias rubbed the back of his neck. "So now the Valeri are hunting you? They will not stop until I am silenced," she said. "But Earth hides me better than any world. Your weather kills machines, your air bends signals. And your people, they do not look to the stars for fugitives." Elias gave a small grin. "We're too busy surviving our own planet." That made her smile faintly. "That is what I admire most. You live in chaos and call it freedom." He poured another cup of coffee and set it near her. She looked at the steam rising and asked, "Why do humans always offer warmth? Fire, drink, shelter, even when you distrust a stranger?" Elias shrugged. "Maybe because most of us have been cold once." She studied him for a long time, then nodded slowly. "Your kind is strange. Dangerous, yes, but strange." He leaned forward. "And what do you plan to do now, Sareth of Valor?" She hesitated, staring into the fire. "I plan to disappear. I cannot return home. If the Valeri find me, they will erase me from history." Elias crossed his arms. "That's not much of a plan." She looked up at him again, her eyes calm but tired. "Do humans always expect hope to follow ruin?" He smiled faintly. "We try to, yeah. It's sort of our thing." Saroth tilted her head as if trying to understand that kind of thinking. "You fight, even when defeat is certain. Always. Then you are more dangerous than I was told." Hours passed as the day grew bright. Elias worked outside, chopping wood for the fire, while Sareth explored the cabin carefully. She examined simple things, a photograph, a book, a clock. Every discovery seemed to fill her with wonder. At one point, she touched the frame of a family photo resting on the shelf. It showed Elias in uniform beside two other humans, both smiling. "Your kin?" she asked. "My brother and his wife," he said. "They live down near the valley. Do they know you returned?" "Not yet. I was planning to surprise them without an alien queen involved." Cirith smiled gently. "Then perhaps I should remain unseen." When Elias returned inside, he found her standing by the window again. The snow had stopped, and the sky was turning pale blue. "Your world is loud in color," she said softly. "Even silence here shines." Elias handed her a wool blanket. "You'll get used to it." She looked down at the fabric, feeling its roughness between her fingers.
"We wove with light," she murmured.
"It never felt like this." He chuckled. "We still do things the hard way." She looked at him again, curiosity in her eyes. "Do you ever regret being human?" He blinked. "Never, even though your world breaks you again and again." "That's why we love it," he said simply. "Everything worth keeping fights back." For a long time, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Now I understand why the stars fear you." That night, the storm returned. The wind screamed down the valley, shaking the cabin walls. Elias added more wood to the fire while Sarath sat cross-legged on the floor, staring into the flames. She spoke suddenly, voice low. "Elias Ward, there is something I have not told you." He looked over. "Go on." "When I fled my throne, I took something with me. A device. It contains every code that controls the Valeri fleets." Elias frowned. "You mean you have command access?" She nodded. "If they find it, they can use it to reignite war. If I destroy it, millions of Valeri soldiers will be trapped across the galaxy, lost and starving." Elias exhaled slowly. "So whichever choice you make, someone suffers." "Yes." Her eyes glimmered faintly in the firelight. "I carry a crown I can no longer wear, and a weapon I cannot destroy." He was quiet for a moment. "You're not alone now. You're on Earth. Let's figure it out together." She looked at him, startled. "Together?" "Yeah," he said. "That's what humans do when things get bad. We stand together, even if we barely know each other." Sareth stared at him, as if trying to decide whether he was brave or foolish. "You would risk your life for a creature from another world." He smiled faintly. "I've risked it for less." Something in her expression softened. "Then perhaps your kind truly are Deathworlders." The storm raged through the night. Around midnight, Elias heard the strange hum again, the same low vibration he'd dismissed before. He went to the window and saw faint lights beyond the ridge. He frowned. "That's not lightning." Sareth was suddenly on her feet. Her eyes widened in fear. "They found me." Elias grabbed his coat and rifle. "How close?" "Too close," she said. "Those are Valeri trackers. They follow heat signatures through storms." He looked out again. 3 faint lights hovered in the dark sky, moving slowly toward the cabin. "You need to hide," he said quickly. Sareth shook her head. "They will burn the mountain to find me. You must let me go." "It's not happening," Elias said. "We'll deal with them." She stepped closer. "You cannot fight them, human. They are machines built to hunt queens." Ilias's jaw tightened. Then they're about to meet something they didn't build for Earth. He moved quickly, pulling an old jammer unit from his ship gear, one he'd used on asteroid mines to block scans. He tossed it near the window. The hum deepened, then faded slightly. Sareth watched, surprised. "You think old tools can stop Valeri machines?" "I think you've never seen what old tools can do in the right hands," he said. She almost smiled, despite the danger. Minutes later, the lights vanished behind the trees. The storm swallowed the sound. Still, both of them knew this peace was only temporary. Sarath stood by the fire, her face lit in orange and shadow. "You do not understand what you have done," she said softly. "By protecting me, you've declared yourself my ally. That makes you their enemy." Elias shrugged. "Wouldn't be the first time? You do not fear them?" "I've faced worse, like what?" He smiled faintly. "My own mistakes." For the first time since she arrived, Sareth laughed quietly, sound like music breaking through steel. You are impossible. Humans usually are. As the night deepened, the two sat by the fading fire. The storm began to die outside, leaving only the hiss of snow sliding from the roof. Sareth finally spoke again, her voice quiet. If I survive this, I will owe your world a debt it can never repay. Elias looked at her seriously. You don't owe us anything. Just don't forget what you saw here. Her eyes lingered on him for a long time. I won't. When she turned back to the fire, Elias caught a small reflection in her hand, a metallic crystal, faintly pulsing with inner light. The device she'd spoken of. The crown she couldn't destroy. He said nothing, only watched as she stared at it, lost in thought. Outside, far beyond the mountains, something moved through the clouds, quiet, invisible, waiting. The hunters were closer than either of them knew. The valley was quiet in the early morning, but the calm was deceptive. Elias Ward could feel it in his bones, the tension that comes before a storm, stronger than any winter wind. Outside the cabin, the snow lay thick and undisturbed, but he knew that would not last. The faint hum from the night before had returned, stronger this time, vibrating in the air like a heartbeat from something unseen. Sareth was already awake, standing by the window. Her silver skin reflected the pale light of dawn, and her dark eyes scanned the ridge beyond the cabin. They are close, she said quietly. The trackers are near. Leah set down his cup of coffee. How close? She frowned. Too close to wait. They will be in the valley within an hour. If we stay here, your home will be lost. He nodded. Then we move. He grabbed a small pack with Essentials rifle. Comes survival gear and motioned for her to follow. There's a ridge east of here. We can use the trees and the snow to hide. Sareth hesitated. I cannot fight them. My people, my guards, are not like humans. They are machines made to track, destroy, and report. Elias gave her a steady look. Neither am I, but humans have ways the universe doesn't expect. You'll see soon enough. The trek to the ridge was slow and deliberate. Snow was soft and deep, hiding their tracks as best it could. Elias led, pointing out paths between trees, hollows, and rock formations. Sareth followed silently, trusting him even though she had never met another human like him before. Why do you help me? She asked after some time. Elias glanced at her. Because you're in trouble. And out here, trouble doesn't wait for anyone. She seemed to consider that. Your people are strange. You do not fear death as much as you fear failure.
Ow.
He chuckled softly. That's because most of us know death comes anyway. Might as well make sure the failure doesn't come first. The ridge opened to a high point overlooking the valley. From here, they could see faint lights flickering through the trees. Machines hovering just above the snow, small, fast, precise. The Valeri trackers. Sleek shapes that glided like shadows, scanning every inch of the frozen ground. They are not just looking for me, Sareth whispered. They will burn the mountain if they must. Elias scanned the trackers, noting their speed and patterns. Then we use what we have. The terrain, the snow, and a little human ingenuity. He began setting traps, small simple devices he had kept from old mining days, tension wires, trip alarms, and a few EMP charges. Sareth watched him work, fascinated. These are your weapons? She asked. Old tools, yes, he said, but in the right hands they're deadly. By mid-morning, the trackers had entered the valley in greater numbers. Elias and Sareth crouched behind a boulder, snow covering them almost entirely. The tracker's sensors glowed faintly, scanning the surroundings. Every machine was precise, every movement calculated. They will detect you soon, Leia said, tension in her voice. Elias smiled faintly. Let them. The first tracker glided over their position. Its sensors swept the snow, missing the tiny footprint behind the rock. Elias held his breath. Saraph's hand was on his arm. Her body tense like a spring ready to release. When the machine passed, he let out a quiet sigh. Step 1, done. He triggered a tension wire as the next tracker approached. A small charge exploded near its legs. Sparks flew. The tracker toppled silently into the snow. Sarath's eyes widened. "You are fearless." "Careful," he whispered. "Fear is useful sometimes. But today, we make them afraid of humans." One by one, they used traps and the landscape to their advantage. The trackers advanced in predictable patterns, but Elias had anticipated every move. A thin branch snapped here, a buried wire there, and another tracker fell. Its sensors blinded by snow and EMP pulses. Sarath remained quiet, studying his methods. "You're kind. Fights without weapons that matter. You use the world itself," Elias grinned. "The world fights with us. You just need to know how to listen." By noon, the trackers were fewer. Several had been destroyed or disabled. Sarath watched from behind a snowdrift. Realizing that humans' resilience was not just survival instinct, it was clever, ruthless in its simplicity. She had never seen anything like it in her empire. "They are remarkable," she whispered, almost to herself. Elias glanced at her. "Remarkable and stubborn. You'll learn that fast if you stick around humans." Hours passed. The trackers regrouped and tried to flank them from the other side. Elias anticipated the move and led Sarath through a hidden hollow behind a rock face. They moved silently, the snow muffling their steps. One of the machines appeared suddenly in the path ahead. Elias didn't hesitate. He lifted a small EMP grenade, pulled the pin, and tossed it. The tracker shivered, its lights flickered, and it fell silently into the snow. Sarath gasped, impressed. "You are incredible." He shook his head. "Just human. And sometimes, that's enough." The trackers were relentless, but Elias and Sarath used everything around them: the trees, the rocks, the uneven snow. The humans' ability to adapt to their environment was something the Valeri could not calculate. Their machines were precise but rigid. Humans were unpredictable. By nightfall, the valley was quiet again. The trackers had withdrawn, regrouping beyond the mountains. Elias and Sarath stood on the ridge looking down at the forest below. The fire of the cabin flickered faintly in the distance. "You survived," Sarath said softly. Elias smiled. "We survived together."
Yeah.
She studied him carefully. "You're kind, humans. You are a species of warriors without armies. A people who can turn the simplest tools into death for those who underestimate you." He nodded. "That's why the stars fear us, and why some of us can be friends to queens." She blinked at him. "I understand now. Not fully, but enough." Elias gave her a small grin. "Good enough." The night was long and silent, except for the faint sound of snow shifting in the wind. Sarath sat by the small fire they had built on the ridge, her silver skin glowing in the warm light. Elias worked on more traps, checking wires and EMP charges, preparing for another possible attack. She finally spoke. "You risk your life for me." "Why?" He paused. "Because anyone who deserves a chance at life gets one. And anyone who comes after you is going to find out that humans don't give up easily." Her eyes softened, and for a moment she seemed human, vulnerable, yet strong. "Your people, they carry courage in ways I cannot imagine." Elias shrugged. "We survive. That's all. But we survive with each other. That's where the courage comes from." She nodded slowly. "Then perhaps I have underestimated humans for too long." "You're learning fast," he said, smiling faintly. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying a sound that made Elias stiffen. Faint, metallic, moving through the trees. Another group of trackers. He motioned for Sarath to move back behind the ridge rocks. "Get ready," he whispered. "They're testing us again." The trackers glided closer, scanning for heat signatures. Elias adjusted his traps silently. When the first machine passed over, he triggered a small pile of snow and rocks, sending it crashing down. The machine fell, blinded by snow and debris. Sarath watched, silent, her eyes wide. "You fight." like Earth itself is on your side. Lieza's smile was grim. Because it is. One by one, the trackers fell to their traps. The human ingenuity combined with the Death Worlder, endurance proving too much. Sarath had never witnessed anything like it. They were supposed to be perfect hunters' machines designed to track and destroy, but they were falling like dominoes to a species had never fully understood. By midnight, the trackers had retreated completely, leaving the valley silent. Sarath finally exhaled. I have never seen a species fight like this. Even my own soldiers could not have done what you just did. Leah sat back, exhausted but alert. Humans aren't soldiers in the traditional sense. We survive, adapt, and fight in ways others can't predict. She looked at him, awe in her eyes. Then perhaps Earth's fire is not just in the heat of the sun, but in the hearts of its people. He nodded. That's exactly right. And that fire doesn't go out easily. For the first time since she arrived, Sarath seemed at peace. Not safe, but aware that she had found something she had never experienced before, an ally who could match her courage. In a home that would fight for her as fiercely as she had fought for it herself. Elias watched her by the fire, feeling a quiet pride. Humanity had been tested again, not by stars or storms, but by the shadow of an empire, and they had stood tall. And for Sarath, the alien queen who had fled everything she had known, she finally understood what it meant to be truly astonished by a human heart. The valley was silent at first light. Snow lay thick across the ridges and trees, sparkling like millions of tiny stars in the early morning sun. The storm from the night before had passed, leaving only a biting chill in the air. Elias Ward stood at the edge of the ridge, scanning the horizon. Every shadow, every movement could be a threat. Sarath emerged from the shelter of the trees behind him. Her silver skin shimmered softly in the light, and her eyes, once full of fear, now held a quiet awe. She had watched humanity fight like no other species she had known, and she was learning quickly why the Valeri, so proud and powerful, feared them. They are coming back, she said softly. Pointing toward the faint glimmer of movement far across the valley, Elias didn't flinch. He had expected it. Let them come, he said. We'll show them what humans do when they protect their own. Sarath's gaze lingered on him. There was something about the calm in his tone that reminded her of the stories she had heard as a child. Before politics and war hardened her heart, humans fought not for glory, not for conquest, but because survival and loyalty were part of their nature. They will not understand your world, she said. No, Elias replied, but that's their mistake. They prepared quickly. Elia set traps along the ridge trip wires, snow-covered pits, and small EMP devices he had scavenged from his old mining equipment. Sarath, though unfamiliar with human tactics, assisted, guiding him to points where the machines could not predict the terrain. They underestimate the ground beneath their feet, she observed. On my world, machines move like rivers. On Earth, the rivers move machines. Leah smiled faintly. Exactly. By mid-morning, the first Valeri machines appeared. Sleek, dark, and precise, they glided over the snow, sensors scanning for heat. Elias crouched behind a boulder, Sarath at his side, her silver cloak blending with the snow. The first machine approached, unaware of the trap. Elias triggered a wire, and a pile of snow and rocks tumbled down onto it, crushing its sensors. Sparks flew, and it toppled silently into the drifts. Sarath's eyes widened. You used the world itself to fight. Elias gave her a calm smile. The universe has a way of helping those who understand it. One by one, the trackers advanced, predictable in their calculations, but rigid in thought. Elias used every trick the mountains provided. Hidden pits, snow collapses, and small EMP bursts disabled machines faster than they could recover. Sarath watched silently, realizing that humans were not only resilient but cunning. They used chaos as a weapon. Machines designed to hunt her could not handle unpredictability. They fall like children before a storm, she whispered. Elias shook his head. They're learning just like we are. The sky darkened as more trackers approached. Their numbers were larger now, and Elias knew this would be the final test. Sarath stepped closer, lowering her voice. They will not stop until I am captured or destroyed, she said. You must leave me, human. Save yourself. Elias looked at her firmly. I don't leave people behind. Not now. Not ever. Her eyes softened, a faint smile appearing despite the tension. Then you truly are human. The first of the final wave of machines approached. Elias and Sareth moved together along a hidden path through the trees, each step calculated. Snow muffled their movement, shadows hid them from view, and the humans' unpredictability kept the machines from anticipating their next move. Elias pulled a small EMP grenade from his pack and hurled it. It exploded among the closest trackers, sending sparks and smoke into the cold air. One by one, the machines faltered, tripping over the traps he had laid. Sareth crouched beside him, watching in awe. They cannot fight what they cannot predict. No, Elias agreed. And humans are always unpredictable. Hours passed in a tense rhythm. The machines pressed forward, relentless, but falling into trap after trap. Sareth had never seen any species survive like this. Even her most disciplined soldiers would have been destroyed long ago. But humans adapted, survived, and used the environment itself as their shield and weapon. By late afternoon, the valley was littered with fallen machines. Elias and Sareth stood on a high ridge, looking down at the remnants of the attack. Sparks still flickered among the wreckage, and smoke curled into the cold air. They underestimated you, Sareth said softly. Even their designs could not predict this. Elias shook his head. They always underestimate humans. That's why we survive. She studied him, her silver eyes reflecting the orange of the firelight in the wreckage. You are not just survivors. You are a force, a living weapon. Perhaps that is why the stars fear your kind, Leah smiled faintly. And that's exactly why you're alive. Night fell over the valley. The storm had returned lightly, snow falling softly, covering the tracks of both human and machine. Sareth and Elias returned to the cabin. She moved silently like a shadow, but her expression was lighter than it had been in months. Your world. It is harsh, she said softly, and yet your people thrive in it. Not just survive, Elias said. We fight. We adapt. We protect what we care about. That's what makes us dangerous. She sat near the fire, her hands brushing over the warm stones. I have ruled empires, commanded fleets, and yet I have never felt awe like I feel now. Not at my throne, not among my people, not even in the greatest battles of the stars. Elias watched her closely. Then Earth has shown you something worth seeing. Her eyes met his. It has. And you. You have shown me courage I thought only existed in myths. The fire flickered between them. For a long moment, neither spoke. The machines were gone, the snow falling softly. The world felt as if it held its breath. Elias finally said, You are safe here. At least for now. Sareth nodded. Safe and astonished. That is what I am. The night deepened. Sareth rose slowly and moved to the fireplace. She stared into the flames, as if seeing visions in the dance of the firelight. Elias watched silently, understanding that she was not only processing the battle, but the human spirit itself. You humans, she said softly. Almost to herself, you fight not for conquest, not for glory, but for each other. That is something I cannot teach, and yet I am learning. Elias stepped closer. It's what makes us strong, and it's what saved you today. She turned to him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of awe, relief, and something like respect. Captain Ward, you in your world, you are remarkable. I have seen fleets fall. Soldiers obey commands without question, and yet nothing compares to this. This life, this fire, this resilience. He smiled faintly. It's called humanity. We're stubborn, proud, and sometimes reckless. But we fight. Always. Outside, the snow fell gently, covering the valley in white. The remnants of the Valeri machines lay buried under drifts, forgotten by the storm. Humanity had defended its own. And the alien queen who had fled everything now understood why Earth's people were feared across the stars. Sareth knelt by the fire, her hands brushing over the warm stones. She whispered, "I owe your kind a debt. A debt the stars cannot measure." Elias shook his head. "You don't owe us anything. Just remember what you've seen here. And perhaps remember us well." Her silver eyes held his gaze, then softened. "I will. And when the Valeri ask what I saw in this world, I will tell them. Humanity is not to be underestimated. Your hearts, your courage, and your fire are unmatched." Elias nodded. "That's exactly right. And now, rest. Tomorrow is another day, and there's still much to protect." The fire burned long into the night, casting flickering shadows across the cabin walls. Outside, the valley was peaceful. Sareth sat quietly, reflecting on the courage, resilience, and indomitable spirit of humans. Elias, exhausted but content, leaned back in his chair. Humanity had proven itself once again against the impossible, against the stars, against the relentless pursuit of a galaxy-spanning empire for Sareth. The alien queen, who had fled everything she knew, this night was unlike any other. She had faced fear, destruction, and doubt, and yet she had seen something extraordinary. Humans standing together, using ingenuity, courage, and heart to overcome what seemed unstoppable. She looked at Elias one last time before sleep claimed her. The universe may bend to the strong, but it bows to the relentless. That is humanity, Elias smiled softly. And you've learned it firsthand. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees. The stars glimmered faintly beyond the storm clouds, and Earth held its breath, silent but alive. Humanity had stood tall, and the alien queen had witnessed it. She would return to the stars with a new understanding, a new respect for the people who lived, fought and thrived on this small, wild, and stubborn planet. And for Elias Ward, the fire in the cabin burned brighter than ever. Not just warmth, not just survival, but the living proof that humans were never to be underestimated in the quiet valley. The alien queen sat by the fire, astonished, than the man who had saved her stood nearby. Knowing that the universe itself had just learned a lesson in humanity, the fire crackled. The snow fell, and for the first time in a long while, both human and queen were at peace. The stars outside would remember this night, and so would Earth.